Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I've got the Spyderco 2018 mid-year production guide here, and a lot of these knives have come out already, not all of them, but most. And so we're just going to go through and give them a grade. Some of them I've handled personally myself, not all of them. This is just for funsies. The ones that I haven't actually handled, I'm just kind of taking the general zeitgeist, my secondhand perception of how the knife kind of fared in the industry. So this isn't meant to be an end-all be-all guide. Obviously, talking about knives I haven't actually physically handled, but I think I can decipher some of the problems and kind of remind you of what the kind of overall view of the knife is. Don't take this too seriously. This is just for fun. Start a conversation in the comments section. If you see a grade that I give a knife that you agree with or disagree with, go ahead and chime in and give your reasons why. This is just a fun conversation starter that we're doing here. So let's get into it and we'll just have some fun with it. All right, so let's open this sucker up and we'll just go like left to right-ish. I might skip around a little bit. So first thing we got here is the Caparo. Now, I did review this knife and I think overall, everybody's opinion of this knife is quite high. I wasn't as high on it as everybody else seems to be. I had some serious issues with the compression lock on that knife. Not like it was mechanically broken, it was just uncomfortable to use with your traditional fingers. So I tended to do it with my thumb just because it was a little bit more comfortable. Anyway, overall, I think it was a really good first attempt by Mr. Phillips here. And I think he shows a lot of promise. And I think overall the knife is fantastic. Just with a couple little tweaks, and I think we'd have a real gem. Something that could be like a long-term gem, like a PM2, I think, if some of the issues were rectified. So I want to give it like a B. Everybody else would give it an A+. I'm going to go B+. Yeah. Amalgam. Now, I know this is a gigantic knife, and people are having some problems with the flipper tab. The flipper tab is, when you close the knife, the flipper tab would bonk right into your finger if you don't move your finger away real quick. It's not sharp. It's not like it's cutting you. It's not the blade hitting you. But I know a lot of people had an issue with that, so you just kind of had to get the muscle memory down to move your finger out of the way before that happened. Overall, it's just a gigantic knife, and so it didn't fit into a lot of people's collection in terms of just how many gigantic knives do you need that are this shape. I don't know, but I think it was a decent knife, just with some little issues here and there. I'm not a big fan of the spoon clip on a giant knife like that. I don't know, I'll call it a B-. What else do we have? We have the Mantra 3. Similar issues here. We had a compression lock flipper, and the detent was really weak on this knife, is what I was hearing from a lot of people. So I think on this one, we're going to give this one a little bit lower grade, maybe a C+. I know that previous versions of the Mantra have had more people kind of positive about them. I can't remember if it's the Mantra 1 or the Mantra 2, but Pete over at Cedric and Ada loves his Mantra. And doesn't like the new ones, and I don't really blame him. I'm not a big fan of the recurve. The theory is the recurve has to be there so that the blade doesn't cut you when your finger is in the compression lock area. Those two things together, I can't quite give it a B like I can with the Amalgam. All right, Techno 2. Now, this had a lot of hype around it because I think a lot of people liked the Techno 1. It was just too thick of the blade stock. So I think the issue was they made the blade stock a little bit thinner, but the knife overall was thicker. The scales were thicker. So in the pocket, it didn't really save you much space. It's maybe a little bit better cutter, but it kind of disappointed a lot of people from what I could tell. There's also some like zombie green back barrel spacer things back there that kind of turned some people off. I think I would have been okay with that, but it was enough of a thickness issue that I didn't really bite the bullet and get this knife. I'm going to give it a B, just B, I think. Maybe a B-. for the letdown. Yeah, B minus. I don't know. You could talk me up to a B on that one. Speaking of B's, we've got the McBee. I think this was a cool little knife. I got to handle one briefly. Nick had one on hand one of the times we met. That was a unique little experience. I don't think I would ever convince myself to buy one. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, I think, in a practical sense, even though it could be like a good little box cup, like cutter type deal. I like how much attention and detail they put into something that's so small and just unique. I want to give it a little bit higher of a grade just because I think it performed better than most people thought it would, and it's just so unique. I'm going to go with A minus on this one. Smock. Let's talk about the Smock. This is definitely an interesting knife. I have almost bought this knife like 5 times. I just never bring myself quite to do it. I don't know why. Well, I guess I do know why, but I feel like each time it's a different reason. I'm not a big fan of the giant choil. I'm not too upset about it like some people are. I understand that has to make room for a bunch of mechanism type stuff back here, and you just can't have the blade go all the way back. So I'm a little bit annoyed by the like blade cutting length to body ratio. I do like the flipper tab. I think the flipper tab works really well. And the biggest reason why I never bought it is it reminded me too much of the Boost Blades Hound that I reviewed. This big blocky section is just not ergonomic. And it's an issue because whenever you have this corner type flipper, kind of like the Hound has, you have to make room for it down here when the blade is open. And so you can't open that like spot open. That was redundant. So it's just kind of like this awkward placement where if you hold it right on that block to get like closer to the blade because it's so far away from you, then it's just kind of awkward where these, pincher grip is like really far apart and then everything else is kind of like scrunched up together. I don't like that. I drew a picture. I sent this to a random viewer and we were talking about ergonomics, and I just have a different philosophy than he does. I'll show this picture. It's like really crude, dark, just something I randomly just drew in like 2 seconds. But you kind of get the idea of like, I want these fingers to be closer together. And then because there's a lot more palm area, I want the back of the knife to kind of balloon out and fill my palm. When you do it the opposite, it just feels awkward. It doesn't feel right, in my opinion. Everybody's different. We all have different hands, but I don't know. It's just, I feel like there's some level of like logic that's in that very subjective view. So I really like the compression lock button. That's really what's pulling me in the direction of like wanting to buy the knife or try the knife. I'm gonna give it a B plus, just because it's doing something different. It didn't quite pull it off with the ergonomics and the choil, I feel like, but it was close. It was close. All right, and here's garbage we want to talk about. No, I don't know. That's just a normal little native. Don't care about that. Ooh, the Drunken. That I've got right here. So, what do we grade the Drunken? Well, I think it's saying something that I still have the knife. I like the knife. I had a gigantic review on the knife. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And ultimately, there's a lot to like here. You have the milling patterns, the time and detail that went into that is tremendous. You have a very gorgeous blade with the polished stonewash. S90V is very premium. And, after flicking this knife like a billion times, the action on this knife got significantly better. One of the downsides to getting reviews out quick is I don't get to spend as much time, actually breaking in the knife. But I take that into account when I'm doing the review. And, if something changes, I'll update you guys like I am now. So the biggest issue on the Drunken was the clip. This was very narrow right here to where a lot of people with jeans or something couldn't even like get it up to the top of the clip all the way without it like pinning it down. And then you had this tip right here is just poking up at a weird angle. And so a lot of people, rightfully so, are upset about that. I was upset about that. But, you know, when everything else is good, and that's the one thing that's kind of holding it back, and it's something that's so easily fixable, why not just fix it? And so I took it apart, clamped it down, took some pliers with a bunch of fabric wrapped around, and just kind of bent it into a different shape. I raised this so it's up, and I lowered this tip down so it's not quite so pokey in the hand, and pretty much solved the problem. It's not deep carry still, so it's not like this is the best clip ever, but at least now it's adequate. It's doing the job that I need it to do. That a lot of people, and this doesn't just apply to the Drunken, think, oh, if one thing is wrong that shouldn't be wrong on X dollar price of knife, that's not right. I paid $200 for this knife. It shouldn't be misaligned or not centered. I pay $410 for this knife. It better have a good clip. I get the argument. I mean, you could totally decide to do that. I mean, you are the boss of yourself. The thing is, the logical aspect that you're forgetting is, okay, show me a knife that's just as good as this knife, not counting the clip, for that price. And if you can't, then maybe we should be motivated to just bend this clip in the right direction. So comparing this knife to like a Sebenza, I think this is a better knife than a Sebenza. It's cheaper and just better, straight up. Better steel, better finish, more detail work on both sides, more modern, better action. You get to flick it up. I mean, I could talk all day about how I think this is a better knife than a Sebenza, except for the clip. So I spend 10 minutes fixing a clip. Problem solved, guys. Problem solved. Yes, it's annoying that we had to do that and it didn't come that way. Doesn't mean it's not fixable or that it's not worth it. So I'm not going to be able to give this an A, simply because it would be nice if it was out of a box, but it's a fantastic knife, so I'm giving it a B+. Yeah, and I'm keeping my Drunken. It's grown on me a little bit. I feel better about it now than I did before. It's thin, it's lightweight, it's useful, it's good blade to body ratio. There's a lot of things about this knife I like a lot. So I think it deserves that grade. All right, let's look here. Let's go on to the back. We could talk about Rex 45 real quick. I think this knife steel actually surprised a lot of people. Rex 45 was definitely off my radar until this came out, and just from the tests that people are doing, I think this ended up being a very good steel. Randomly, I think I saw a lot. This is anecdotal evidence for sure, but a lot of people like the orange, the burnt orange look. It's unique. I'll give it that. Giving a lot of B pluses, but I'm not blown away. Something's got to blow me away to get an A. Don't care about that. Let's see, what else? Oh, yes, the Subvert. I have not recorded the review for this yet, but I actually have this knife in. And so I think I'm gonna review it. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this knife, because I wanna say, you know, hyperbolically, like, this is just a ridiculous knife and nobody should really logically have a reasonable reason to buy it over any other knife for any other job. Like, I can't think of a job where it's like, the Subvert is clearly the best candidate for this very specific job. I can't think of one. That could just be a lack of my imagination, but that's not really my job only as a knife reviewer. I'm going to probably take a look at this knife just objectively, like its pros, its cons, like I always do, in the actual mechanical knife itself. And then we'll save the conclusion for the philosophical, why does this knife exist? Should it exist? Should you buy it? That kind of stuff. I'm still kind of mulling over my feelings over that. I think it's just the fact that Spyderco is willing to do something like this gives it some points. I think the McBee was trying to do something different and then ended up being much more practical than we expected it to be. So I think for that, I'm going to give this B-. It just didn't hit home for me quite like the McBee did in terms of the practicality of it, but I still appreciate that it exists. Don't count that as a spoiler. Please watch the review when it comes out. Ooh, yeah, here's another one. So we've got our little Brouwer down here. It's green. It doesn't look as green on the picture as it actually is, but it's much more green than that. This was an interesting knife. There's nothing wrong with it. There's also not really anything that exciting about it. This is probably my go-to example of like the blah knife. Just it's so bleh, just like normal I guess, you know. G10, titanium, S30V. It's got a sharp edge. I don't know. Like the ergonomics weren't awesome. They weren't terrible. The clip is weird. The clip is definitely weird. That was a big knock against it. I know Nick really liked it, and he actually got a different clip for it, I think, for that knife, because it starts so low, and then it's a shallow spoon clip anyway. So it's like the clip's almost closer to the front of the knife than it is the back of the knife. So that's a no-no. Like any knife maker watching right now, you see this crap right here? Don't do that. That's a no-no. Don't do that. Hate it. Hate it. But aside from that, nothing was too offensive about the knife. I am going to give it the most mundane grade I can, which is a C. Very crooked, lopsided, drunk C. What else do we have? I'm not allowed to buy that one. H1's been replaced. Ooh, this is kind of cool. I like a big 4V knife. I'm a big fan of 4V for fixed blades. Yeah. Crap steel, not interested. Don't need a hatchet. Birds, not the word. What's this? The elephant in the room. I have been waiting for this knife forever. Since before I was even in the hobby. That doesn't make sense. But this knife is supposed to be coming out soon. And I see one glaring problem right there. Do you see it? Do you see the problem, people? That is a crap knife. Pocket clip. So I think I'm not going to get my knickers in a twitch. If your knickers are twitching, you've been fidgeting with your knife too much. This is a normal clip. So I don't know, you know, if the knife is blowing me away, I'm not going to automatically give this a B+ because this clip sucks. This is not as atrocious as the clip on the Drunken because the clip on the Drunken is proprietary. I can't just go buy another clip. This is the same configuration as just like a standard PM2 like secondary market clip. So I'm less upset about that. There's going to be some people, man, I'm going to buy a third $20 knife that has a good clip on it. I get it. I understand. But again, what are your other options for getting a Paisan? Spending $1,500. So you have to take $520 plus another $25 for a good clip. Add that together. Is that still less than $1,500 for a Paisan? Yes, it is. By a small margin. So, logically, you should not let yourself talk yourself out of that knife if that's your only holdup. If you don't got the money in the first place, that's a whole nother issue. But I don't want to see that crap around. That doesn't make any logical sense. It's fine to have an opinion and say you don't want to buy the knife, but that's not a logical reason. That's just an emotional one, and you're just saying words that you thought of in your head. They're not necessarily coherent. But that's just my opinion. We're just having fun here. Yeah. All right. So tell me what you think about this. Is there any knife grade on here that you think I'm more than a grade off? Let me know in the comments. We'll have that conversation. Or if you just think I'm awesome and you agree with everything, you can tell me that too. Appreciate the support. That's it, everybody. I hope this was fun for you. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.